Hello and welcome back to The Stack. Here are today's top stories. The first story is Laura Trump warning Americans about the raid that occurred on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home in Palm Beach, Florida. So the FBI went to Trump's home for no apparent reason. They have not given a reasoning as to why they've done this, and they raided it without telling him. This was announced late yesterday afternoon, here, our time in Arizona. It's unclear what was so important that they needed to go make a big scene, do a raid, and make a spectacle that is embarrassing both for Biden and for the country as a whole. That's exactly what Laura Trump was saying. She's the daughter-in-law of President Donald Trump. She's married to his son, Eric Trump. And she said, quote, "For someone and anyone, quite frankly, who loves this country and believes in America, this should shake you to your core, what has happened today. This is a very clear demarcation in the history of America." So she's absolutely correct about that. Anytime that you see the federal government coming in and using one of their branches to get their political agenda accomplished, and in this case, the political agenda is to make sure that Donald Trump cannot run again in 2024, to make sure that he does not present any more threats to the Democrat Party. And so what they're doing is they're going in and they're trying to find some criminal thing hidden in Mar-a-Lago that will keep him from running in 2024. It's absolutely inappropriate what's happening right now, what the Biden administration is doing. Laura Trump was pointing that out, and she also said this doesn't just have to do with Trump. This has to do with Americans as a whole. She said, quote, "Think about this. If this is what they're able to do to the former president of the United States, think about what they could do to you, to anybody in America." And that's exactly true. This is what we've seen as conservatives. We've seen the federal government being weaponized against conservatives for years now at this point. Since Donald Trump was first elected in 2016, we've seen the federal government use its branches to fight against conservatives and to fight against the values that we hold dear. This was seen from the FBI calling parents who wanted to have a say in their children's education domestic terrorists. We saw it even back as far as the Obama administration in 2012 when the IRS was trying to not provide tax-exempt status to conservative companies. So this is something we've been seeing for a long time. The federal government is trying to weaponize itself against conservatives and Donald Trump, and it's completely inappropriate. And these reactions that it's a terrible day for America are not an overreaction. They're absolutely true. That brings us to our second story of the day, which is the new conservative on The View. Conservative is in air quotes because she's actually a former Trump staffer who has now decided that she hates Trump. She's now a never Trumper. So in true fashion of the left, The View invites somebody to be their token conservative who's not actually a conservative because they don't want to have any meaningful debate. They would rather just have their ideas be able to be said without anybody pushing back against them. As crazy as they are, as crazy as Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, as crazy as these ideas are that they put out there, they don't want anyone to be able to have a logical argument against them, so they'd rather just exist in a vacuum where they can say whatever they want and never get pushed back against. And so that's why they put this woman on here. Her name is Alyssa Farah Griffin. She was a staffer in the Trump White House, as I said, and now she hates Trump. She quit and she no longer supports Trump. She calls herself a conservative, but she said of the reaction to this raid at Mar-a-Lago, quote, "The inflammatory rhetoric coming from some on the right this evening is frightening. Elected officials need to tone down the rhetoric and let the facts play out. In this environment, words matter so much." So it's very interesting because this is exactly what we heard from Joe Biden, from a lot of Democrats when Trump was in office, that his rhetoric was so inflammatory that it's ridiculous that he'd be talking like this. Well, guess what? This is exactly the same thing that the left said when January 6th occurred. They said it was a dark day in American history. It's going to be remembered like 9/11. That was obviously taken way too far. Obviously not true in that case. What we saw were mostly peaceful protesters, some of them entering the Capitol, which was admittedly not the right thing to do. They should not have done that. You saw a few hour delay in a certification vote that then got completed and everything went to plan. Meanwhile, if you want to talk about a real threat to democracy, what you have is the federal government using the FBI to go to the house of a conservative and try to keep him from running in 2024 because they're so afraid that they cannot win with their old doddering president, Joe Biden, that they must take out the opposition so that they don't have to actually run a meaningful campaign. That is a threat to democracy. So if you want to talk about overreacting, this is not the case. And that's exactly the point that Dana Lash made. She works for the NRA, and she said, quote, "More or less inflammatory than some of the offenses perpetuated upon the American people by the very agencies they're criticizing. IRS targeting, FBI abuses, FISA abuses. And what she's saying here is absolutely true. If you want to talk about inflammatory rhetoric, inflammatory actions, weaponizing the federal government against Americans is much more inflammatory than saying, wow, you know what we're seeing right now is not appropriate, and we need to have a reckoning in America about this. So the third story of the day, Ron DeSantis, who's probably the second most popular Republican right behind Donald Trump, he has announced that he is going to be uniting with Donald Trump. Now, this hurts a lot of leftists because they were hoping that Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump would run against each other in 2024. It would split the Republican Party, and that would maybe be their only chance to keep the presidency in 2024. Now, that may still happen. It may still be that Ron DeSantis is going to run in 2024 and Donald Trump may run as well. But at least for now, and at least for the midterms, the left is not going to get that split that they wanted. So Ron DeSantis has gone on the campaign trail, and he's doing it under 3 words, which are unite and win. He's going to be going into battleground states to endorse candidates that Trump already endorsed, and he's going to be going there to campaign for them in person as we get to the general election in November. So that is what DeSantis is doing, and he understands that teaming up with Trump and uniting Republicans together is the best way to do that. So this is obviously great news for conservatives, terrible news for leftists who were hoping that the Republican Party would split, and it looks like it's going to carry a lot of momentum for the Republicans into the November 2022 elections. If you want to keep up to date on everything that's happening with the upcoming midterm elections, that's happening with the Mar-a-Lago raid of Trump's home by the FBI and just the left weaponizing the federal government as a whole, go to westernjournal.com. We're going to have all your latest news there on each of these topics and everything else that you could possibly want to learn about politics, about Donald Trump, about everything that's going on today. So go there. Please like and subscribe this channel, hit that bell icon so that you get notified when we're going live and you never miss an episode of The Stack.